Well, good morning and welcome to Zen Live on this beautiful Sunday morning. And it's a great day in Blackstone, the center of the universe, but then you too are the center of the universe. So the title I just wrote down today that we're going to investigate, we're going to explore, we're going to pull apart like a cotton ball and make it transparent. Oh, I can feel seeds in there. And everything, there's a seed in everything. There's a seed. This is such a great metaphor. You have to get the seeds out, you make cotton, you make beautiful cloth and everything. So but there's thorns here. Would you realize how sharp? Just imagine if you had to pick these all day. This is like picking rose thorns. I mean, can you see how sharp that is? I mean, that would... And then there's full of seeds, and they're all tangled up in there. How difficult it must have been to pull these seeds out. My little understanding of history was that what really created the needs for slaves was the cotton gin, because cotton wasn't really profitable when you had to sit and pick those seeds out all day. Such labor intensive. But then the cotton gin took the seeds out. So now you could grow tremendous amounts of cotton, which was all labor intensive, just like the dark tobacco in Virginia farms were labor intensive. So anyway, I digress. So the title of this was Living in a Hostile Universe. I've almost finished with Exploring the Crack in the Cosmic Egg, which was Joseph Chilton Pearce's second book, or The Crack in the Cosmic Egg, then Exploring the Crack. And what he really explores is culture as a semantic language, as a matrix. Culture as a matrix made up of language and grammar. And if you look at the world we live in, which is a cultural world, there's really three stages. There's a fourth stage, but that's hidden. So let's talk about the first three stages, and then we'll look at the fourth stage. And sounds like Hinduism. In fact, it is. I remember in studying yoga and Hinduism and Indian culture, their stages of life are basically four. I think there's childhood and the obedience to the teacher. That's learning the culture, and then you have the householding middle stage, where you create a business and a family. You live in the culture and enhance the culture, and then there's retirement or study, dropping out. Family's gone, business is gone. And then there is this fourth stage called sannyasi. It's the stage of renunciation. But this stage can happen in any of the other three. Like with Buddha. He was in the second stage, that of the householding, and he just dropped out and became a yogi, a sannyasi, a mendicant, a Buddha, a yogi, dropout. Or, in our terms, a hobo, or a homeless person. Intentionally homeless, you see. Not by force homeless, but an intentionally homeless person. And this is like the myth and the metaphor of the American hobo. Emmett Kelly, the famous Ringling Brothers clown, was a hobo. A renunciate. So the hobo, think about that. You know, that's kind of like a hobo is always a choice of life. Homeless is kind of like, oh my God, I'm kicked out by force, and I can't come back. Forced retirement from the world. But the hobo is a choice. Okay. And it used to be hitchhiking. Used to be a hobo way of life. I hitchhiked across the country when I left home to discover who I was, having failed in college, having failed living at home, I hitchhiked across country. Hitchhiked up to New York to see a friend from college, and hitchhiked across to Portland, stopping in Idaho along the way to see some father's family, hitchhiking on down to San Diego, and went to where I had grown up. And then when my money ran out, I joined the Navy. And but the hobo way of life, the hitchhiking, and this was before the interstates, So you would just stick your thumb out and let the waves, the wind take you where you would. There was no no predictability, no control. The ride stopped. You didn't know if it would be friend or foe. There's a certain amount of faith and trust in that hitchhiking, and many people intentionally go on this voyage, this voyage of homelessness, where you drop out of culture, and it's predictability and control. Culture is all about predicting and control, and it's all about homeostasis. I don't have it here. Homeostasis is like a snow globe when you're not shaking it. Everything is calm. Homeostasis, if you stop shaking the snow globe, it'll return to calm, you see. Shake the snow globe, it loses its homeostasis. Stop shaking it, and it returns. So culture is a built-in homeostasis that wants everything to control, return to sameness. It doesn't like dropping out. It doesn't like anybody being contrary. It doesn't like think outside of the box. The box is culture. So if you try to think outside of the box is going to pull you back in. Education doesn't teach you how to think outside of the box. It teaches you how to think inside the box to enforce culture. One of the reasons homeschooling is so popular is because it allows you to think, hopefully, possibility that homeschooling can educate a child to think outside of the box, outside of culture. Unfortunately, if the homeschooling is religious, well, then that's another culture. Catch-22. Russian nesting dolls. You just think outside of the box by thinking in another culture, which pulls everything back into it. See, every culture, every group, every ideology has a homeostasis that pulls everything back to it to maintain sameness. And if you try to think outside of that, you're a heretic. You'd be burned at the stake, you see. So when I invite you here, I'm inviting you to stick out your thumb and hitchhike. Let's see where it goes. I'm hitchhiking. I'm a hobo. I'm not trying to control this or predict it. I had a thought where it might go, but that's gone out the window. So anyway, we're getting back to living in a hostile universe. Now do the little figure here of the child. So we got the stages of childhood. We've got childhood, okay. We got adulthood, and we got retirement. Retire, okay. And basically that's it. And then we got death here, and we got death here. And by death here, I mean the beginning here is the same as the ending here. I don't know what's there. We don't know who were you before you were born. I was dead. Who are you after you die? After you live, I'm dead. So that's kind of like a bookend here. And so we got here. So now we got here. Childhood is body, okay, and knowledge. And here we got culture. Culture, knowledge. I wish I didn't have to spend time writing on here so you look at the back of my head. But body knowledge is the stage of childhood where the child creates his brain. Well, he actually does. He creates the brain in childhood. And he begins to learn how to operate on the world, making things, organizing things, imagining things, play. So we got play here. The world of play is a world of creating realities and living in it, operating on the world. But then there's a big, boom, cut off here. So when the child then is being introduced to culture, slowly, after 6 years old, from 6 to 10, he is introduced it into a semantic language world, grammar. You go to school and you learn grammar. What do you learn? Subject, verb, object. Boom, boom, boom. That is the language structure of the reality we are taught, the child is taught, is real. In other words, the child is taught that this semantic culture he is living, whether it's American or Canadian or French or Native American, whatever, and all the subcultures within that, remember, the Russian nesting doll. So this semantic language is structured by our grammar. That's why we hate English teachers and ministers. Both of them are saying, obey the rules, get in alignment with the law. So the minister says get in alignment with the biblical language. That's a semantic language, reality. Or get in alignment with the English language and speak correctly and spell correctly and use words correctly. Be grammatically correct or politically correct. And so we revolt. What do you mean? I don't want to be politically correct. I want to think outside the box, you see. So there's a constant rebellion against this in all of our literature. Huckleberry Finn in Mark Twain, my favorite book, is basically about the resistance of Huck Finn, you see, is the eternal child who resists being civilized and always retreats to the river where, if you remember, Huck and Jim, the escaped slave, were kind of like a yin-yang. And there on the raft, they were satisfied, flowing on the river of life, you see. Letting the river take them, they were satisfied. But they would stop and go into the semantic language of culture with the innocence of a child. What is going on here? And they would all try to convert Huck and make him believe in these cultural realities that they thought were real, but the child sees as play. The way, I hope I'm not getting too far from my title here, but the living in a hostile universe is basically what I'm trying to point to is how can we live in a hostile universe without living in a hostile? How can I live? You can't live if you're living in a hostile universe. You can't live if your parents are beating you. You can't live if your spouse is beating you. You can't live in a world if the world is beating you. If you're a victim, you're always losing, you see. But what is this hostile universe but a cultural creation? It's fiction. It's language. It's abstraction. Language is abstraction. So the semantic cultural world is an abstract world lifted off of the ground of reality of the child. It's lifted off of this ground body knowledge of the child and created like an alternate reality. Alt-right, alt-left, alternate, an alternate reality. But you don't have a choice when you are indoctrinated into the culture because there is no option. The fish doesn't have an option about living in the fishbowl or not. His option is to believe the fishbowl is the whole ocean. That's it. No option. No option. So we are indoctrinated into a cultural reality, and it's beat into us by parents to believe this reality because they're in good-hearted. They said, well, you can't doubt reality, the culture, because you won't survive in it. You got to survive in this thing like us. You got to get a job. You got to get married, have a kid, grow up, support it, and then retire and die. So, and retirement is no longer the promised land where you can just play golf and knit or whatever. No, retirement is stressful. And so the whole thing is collapsing. But anyway, I don't want to get too far. I want to point out that the cotton ball we're trying to pull apart here is that living in a hostile universe is living in a universe that we believe is hostile because we've been indoctrinated into a cultural semantic universe that is based on a hostile universe. The whole alternate reality of culture is based on the idea, it's on a death concept, and the fact that the universe, this objective world out there, is hostile to you. You got to control it. You got to work on it. You got to fix it. You got to get somewhere in it. It's not going to help you. It's hostile to you. It's your obstacle. And I'll say, well, this is good. Makes my muscles. I got this obstacle. I got this culture I got to work with. And by God, I'm going to get to the top, you see. I'm going to make it work for me. I can make it after all, you see. And so we struggle in this adult time to make it work. And we crash one after another. A few of us make it work, and then they retire. And then they say, what was it all about? What was it all about, Alfie? And then, they, whatever. So anyway, so this life in the culture kind of looks like that, you see. It's a constant roller coaster ride of success and failure. Struggle and loss. We get up, the higher we get, the lower we go, just like an amusement park. As you remember how if you go in an amusement park, you're going up, and it's like, oh wow, we're going up. This is really high. You can feel the tension. It's slowly going up. And then finally you go over the crest, and then it's death. Ah! And then it's death. That's why we love roller coasters, because you die there. We pay to die. We pay to get back here or here, you see. But anyway, we're bumbling along here, trying to pull the seeds out of this. The idea, living in a hostile universe, as Jesus said, the way to live in a hostile universe is to be as a little child. It's only a little child. Now, he didn't mean little children. He meant the way a child is in the world is the way to get to the kingdom of God. This is not the kingdom of God. Kingdom of God is a place of interaction, of play and creativity, not of hostility and conflict and being a victim. That is not the kingdom of God. So, of course, living in this semantic, we imagine the promised land and the kingdom of God in tomorrow, you see. So the kingdom of God, KG, is always tomorrow. It's even culture presents retirement as the kingdom of God, where now you can just sit back and relax and play golf and play with the grandchildren and on the TV. And oh yeah, if you've got some problems with your body, you take these pills and they'll remove that, But don't listen to the side effects. You see, so the culture presents retirement as the promised land. If you're good and you work hard and sacrifice everything for culture, you will retire and be able to pump gas. I remember, this is a favorite metaphor. I got 30 seconds, but anyway, when I was in the Navy, and I hitchhiked across country to join the Navy to find out what I wanted to do, and I found out I wanted to get out of the Navy. So anyway, I'm getting ready to get out of the Navy, and my sonarman, I was a sonarman in the submarines, and he pats on the gear and says, don't get out of the Navy. You stay here and take care of this sonar gear, and the Navy will take care of you, and in 20 years, you can retire and sit back and just pump gas and enjoy life. And I looked at everybody around there on the boat, on the submarine, and they were all staying in for the 20 years. And they were kind of like, only got 5 more years to go, 10 more years to go. And some were short timer, have a little chain on their belt, and they only got 6 months to go. It's like a prison sentence. It was like a prison sentence. And so I got out to continue my adventure of being a hobo. So let's stop there. Thank you for dropping in and exploring and taking a ride with me, wherever it goes.